Okay, it's a little after 10 o'clock, and I wanted to welcome everyone to the May second Saturday program. And glad that y'all are able to join us this morning. If you're not already members of Friends of Hagerman, I would encourage you to go check out our new website, and it's just friendsofhagerman.com. And there's a place on there where you can become a member and help support the programs like you're seeing today and the other missions there at the Hagerman National Wildlife Refuge. With that, I'm going to hand it over to Wayne and let him introduce our speaker for today.
Thank you, Alan. Mike Keck is one of my very good friends and a colleague. He works at Grayson College in their biology department. And he is mostly a herpetologist. And so having spent a lot of time working on snakes and turtles and lizards, he turns out to be a really reliable person for us to hit up whenever we need to talk. And even better, he's now a member of the program committee. So if you have ideas of speakers you'd like to hear from, he's one of the people you can contact. So without any further ado, Mike, take over.
Thank you, Wayne and Alan. Okay, so the turtles of Hagerman National Wildlife Refuge. Now, this talk, it's mainly about Hagerman, but it would work for pretty much all of North Texas. The turtles at Hagerman and the turtles in the rest of North Texas are mostly the same with a few exceptions. Okay, let's get started. So, pretty diverse audience we usually have here. So I thought I'd start off talking just a little bit about, how do we define a turtle? What is a turtle? Well, they're placed in the order Testudines. And of course, much of the body is covered by this shell, and that's the most distinctive characteristic of a turtle. The top part of the shell is called the carapace, and so please remember that word, because I'm going to use that term carapace a lot today. But that's the upper part of the shell, and the lower part of the shell is called the plastron. Okay, so carapace on top, plastron on the belly. And then there's this bridge that connects the carapace to the plastron. In some species, that bridge is wide, and in some, it's narrow. That shell is made of an overlying layer of basically modified epidermal scales. We call those scutes, though. So what you're looking at is that's a scoot, and that's a scoot, that's a scoot, that's a scoot. But if we could peel those scutes away, we would see underneath there is bone, and so that shell is made of bone. By the way, on the soft shell turtles, they have the bone, but instead of the scutes, they have a leathery skin. So there we go. Here's a look at a turtle, and we're looking at the belly of the turtle, and they remove the plastron. Remember, the plastron is the lower shell, and so you can see how that shell is made of bone there, and the vertebra are fused to the shell. Okay, so we can see it here. We can see it in this turtle. We can see how the vertebra are fused to the shell. Not the neck vertebra or the tail vertebra, but the trunk vertebra are. And so, there's, despite what you may see on cartoons, there's no coming out of that shell, of course, for a turtle. The ribs are expanded, and they're making up part of that shell. Okay, so that part of that shell, that carapace, is made up of expanded ribs. And so that's kind of interesting. So what that means is a turtle can't expand its ribs like you do when it's breathing, when you're breathing heavily. So when you're breathing heavily, you may expand your ribs to help create negative pressure and ventilate your lungs, but a turtle can't do that. And guess what? They also don't have a diaphragm, which is the main way you breathe, that muscle. And so they don't have a diaphragm, they don't have expandable ribs, but they do have lungs, and so they do manage to breathe somehow, nevertheless. Another weird thing is, it's unusual for a tetrapod to have its pectoral and pelvic girdles found within the rib cage. Usually, like our shoulder blades and clavicle and all that stuff is found outside of our rib cage, isn't it? But not these guys. It's found, there's the pelvic girdle, the pectoral girdle. It's found within the rib cage. No teeth on modern turtles. There's some extinct turtles that had, fossil turtles that had teeth, but modern turtles don't have teeth. Instead, they have this beak with this cutting surface called a tomium, but some of them can, it's pretty sharp, that beak can be, but they don't have teeth. All turtles have internal fertilization, and all I mean by that is that the egg is fertilized inside the female's body. External fertilization would be the opposite. So, a lot of amphibians have external fertilization, a lot of fish have external fertilization, but no reptiles do. All reptiles have internal fertilization. And this makes sense for turtles, of course, because they lay shelled eggs. There's no way you could have external fertilization and have a shelled egg. So the egg obviously has to be fertilized before the shell is added. Quite a few of the species, the females can store sperm. So she can mate with a male and keep that sperm inside of her viable and fertilize her eggs maybe weeks or months, possibly even years in a few cases later. This also means that it's not uncommon in some turtles for a clutch of eggs to have multiple fathers. All turtles do lay eggs, so there's no such thing as live birth in a turtle, and they all lay eggs on land. No matter how aquatic the turtle is, it has to come to land to lay its eggs. Some of them have hard-shelled eggs, like a bird egg, like a chicken egg, but not all of them do. Some of them have these leathery or papery eggs, and if you've never felt one of those, it's very interesting. They feel very different than a hard-shelled bird eggs. They're much more pliable. The female usually digs an egg chamber. Some of them it's pretty elaborate. Some of them it's not very elaborate. They just barely dig at all and stick their eggs in there. But usually they do at least some nest building. Only one species is known to stay with or guard the eggs, and it is a species that potentially occurs at Hagerman. And so when I say only one species, I mean only one species in the world. There's no parental care in turtles, so they lay their eggs, they hatch, and you're on your own. Now, interestingly, many turtles have temperature-dependent sex determination, or TSD. So you and I, mammals and birds, we have genotypic sex determination, which of course means the sex that we are, either male or female, is determined by genes. And so in our case, we get those genes from our father, and we either become a male or a female. But in turtles, it's very common for the sex of the offspring to determine by developmental temperature. And it's developmental temperature during a critical period of development. Usually the middle third of development is roughly when this occurs. And so at certain temperatures, males are produced. At other temperatures, females are produced in these species with temperature-dependent sex determination. This is not uncommon. Like I said, it's very common. And in fact, all of our local species have this temperature-dependent sex determination, except for the two species of soft-shell turtles. And they have genotypic sex determination like mammals do. Well, most turtles are omnivorous, meaning they eat both plant matter and animal matter. It's fairly common for them to be more carnivorous, eat more animals when they're young, and more herbivorous as adults, eat more plants as adults. That's not a rule. It's just a kind of a common thing among them. There's two major lineages of living turtles. I don't know of any good common names for some of these things. The Pleurodira and the Cryptodira. So those are scientific names, of course. These are suborders. So we're in the order Testudines and the suborder Pleurodira and Cryptodira, and they're real easy to tell apart. Just look at how they retract their head. So the Pleurodira, which there is a good common name for that, they're the side neck turtles. Now, none of these occur in North America, but I just wanted to mention it anyway. They retract their head sideways, like in these photos. Okay, so those are the side neck turtles. And then the other major lineage is the Cryptodira, and that includes all of our North American turtles. And so they just pull their head straight back in. So their neck, remember their neck vertebrae are not attached to the carapace, and so they can just retract their neck straight in. Diversity. So turtles occur in all oceans and on all continents except for Antarctica. There's about 356 recent species of turtles, so we're not counting fossils. So not that many species of turtles on this planet. And interestingly, the United States is the most species-rich country in the world. And normally when you think of species-rich countries for most things, you think of the tropics, right? But for turtles, it's the U.S. that has the greatest diversity. And so if you count the sea turtles, we have about 59 turtle species in the U.S. And Texas has a great many of those. If you count the sea turtles in Texas, we have 34 species of turtles in Texas. Remember, there's only 356 in the world. At Hagerman, potentially about 15 species occur. And so that's a lot of diversity. And we're kind of right on you'll probably hear me say this more than once, we're kind of right on the edge of, most of these turtles in the United States by far are found east of the Rockies. And so they're not only found east of the Rockies, the vast majority of them are found east of Hagerman, basically. So we're kind of right on the dividing line. As you probably many of you know, Hagerman is a real transitional zone between the eastern U.S. and the western U.S. And so you go a little further east, you get into more turtles. You go a little further west, you get into fewer turtles. So we're kind of right on the edge, but we have possibly 15 species. That's probably a little high, but there could be 15. And Hagerman is in Grayson County, Texas. And there's museum records for 11 of those 15 species from Grayson County, where Hagerman is located. So 4 of them there's no museum records for. I thought I'd just briefly mention the laws in Texas because somebody might be interested in that. In Texas, it's illegal to take or possess any freshwater turtles, any wild turtles, for commercial purposes. And so this was a big conservation win. I think in 2007 is when that was passed. And then it was included private land was included on that just a couple years ago in 2018. So before then, there were tremendous numbers of turtles leaving Texas, mainly for the Asian food market. And, thousands and thousands were leaving every year for the Asian food market. But that has been shut down. At least the legal part of it has been shut down. It's also illegal to possess more than 6 individuals of any species of freshwater turtle from the wild. It's interesting they say freshwater turtle. I don't know if turtles aren't included in that or not. And it's illegal to take an alligator snapping turtle, period. That's a protected threatened species. So most of my talk today is going to focus on identifying these turtles, which is a pretty long talk in and of itself. And so most of our local turtles, they're easily identified as adults if you get a good look at them. And that's the if. That's not always easy. A lot of these things they're hard to approach. Some of them rarely come out of the water. Binoculars definitely help. Sometimes you might really need a spotting scope to identify some of these things because they're so wary. And at Hagerman, it's particularly bad, I think. The turtles at Hagerman I find to be very skittish. It's very difficult to approach most of the turtles. And so I went out 2 days ago to see how many turtles I could identify at Hagerman. And this is typically about as close as I got to most of the turtles. And so especially the soft shells are really hard to get close to at Hagerman. So if this means anything to you, this is a 560 millimeter lens on a full frame camera. And so that's about 11 power, what I'm looking through there. And so that's a lot of magnification coming through the camera. And as you can see, those turtles don't look very big through there. Now there's at least 4 species. There's probably 5 species of turtles basking out there, but it's challenging to see them even through binoculars. So how about identification marks? Well, I don't usually look at the shell. Okay, the shell markings, excuse me, the pattern on the shell. I look at the shape of the shell a lot, but the patterns on the shell, I don't usually pay much attention to because it's generally pretty unreliable. There's a whole bunch of variation within a species. The patterns can change with age, and then you've got this phenomenon where often the shell is covered in dirt or algae or something like that, and you can't even see it. So I generally don't pay much attention to the markings on the shell, even though it might be the thing that is very easy to notice. One of the things I think that's challenging when you're first learning to identify any animal, and certainly this is true of birds, it's learning what to look at and what not to look at, because beginners often they're looking at the wrong thing. And some of this, I can tell you, you can read it in field guides, but some of it just takes some experience. The skin markings aren't reliable in all species. Now, in some species, the skin markings are fairly reliable. Identifying young turtles can be difficult, and I'm not going to talk about that today. That's really a different subject. Where are you going to find turtles at Hagerman? Well, if it wasn't for the pandemic, we could get everybody vaccinated, we would be right here today, wouldn't we? At the visitor center. Okay, so there's Refuge Road coming in at the visitor center. So you can find turtles anywhere at the refuge, but really, in my mind, the best places to go are over here on the other side of Big Mineral Creek. Come out to El Pad. And when you're driving, turn around and look to your left. Look back in this slough at some logs there. Look for them basking. That's what I'm looking for. I'm looking for them basking. That's the only time I get a good look at them. All of these pads, if you turn around and look back in the slough for logs, you can often see turtles. And this is the time of year to be looking for turtles. The water's still pretty cool. But we have nice sunny days, and they're really coming out to bask right now. So May is a great month to be looking for turtles. By the way, when you're driving on these pads, also as you're driving down, look for any little log. It can be quite small, and you may find map turtles on them. And so they don't just need the big logs, and they're a little more approachable sometimes than the other turtles. By the way, on Monday of this week, I saw a log with a number of map turtles right there between what used to be called P and Q pad, I guess, or P and O pad. I can't remember what they're called now. Turn and something or other. So here we go. This is the main part of my talk. I'm going to go through these 15 species of turtles that might be found at the refuge. So in the snapping turtle family, we have 2 potential species. The alligator snapping turtle, This is a big one, okay? This is the largest freshwater turtle in the U.S. They can easily get over 100 pounds, heavy-shelled turtle. You've got these three prominent ridges or keels on the carapace. And even in old individuals, these are usually still visible. They may wear down somewhat, but they're usually still visible. And so that's what is really striking about this species. A small plastron, I'll come back to that in a minute. An extra row of scutes on the lateral side. So the only reason I'm really even talking about alligator snappers today is because they're often confused with common snapping turtles, and so these high ridges on the alligator snapper is a good thing to look for, and this extra row of scutes right here. Okay, so most turtles there would just be a single row of scutes on this marginal side, but on this alligator snapper there's an extra row. The eyes are small, side of the head. The posterior edge of the carapace is serrated, and so we'll see that on a few other turtles. They have a very hooked beak, long tail, and they don't get out of the water much, okay? They rarely bask. I've personally never seen one basking, and so they're staying in the water, except when they're out to lay eggs. Almost all the time they're in the water. One interesting thing that probably quite a few of you know is that they have this this lingual lure that they lure fish with, and so it's part of their tongue, I guess, and they engorge it with blood, and it becomes bright red, and they wave it, and that attracts fish, and then they eat them. A very unusual thing to have. And they do often eat fish. Okay, they eat some plant matter, but they're more carnivorous than a lot of the turtles. By the way, I skipped this. They're usually found near flowing water or oxbow lakes. Okay, so this is not a turtle I would expect to find out in the main body of Lake Texoma. The Big Mineral Creek area, that looks like good habitat for them. That's the sort of habitat I would expect to find them in, but there's never been one found on the refuge. Like I said, they're mainly carnivorous. So when we look at the distribution here, we see Hagerman's kind of right on the edge of their historical distribution. So this is a southeastern species, and so we're right on the edge. We're going to see that for a number of other turtles too. It is doubtful that this species occurs at Hagerman. There's no records that exist from Grayson County. Now there is a record from Collin County below the Lake Lavon Dam, but this is really more of an eastern species. They're not known to be in Lake Texoma or any tributary of the Red River above the dam. Now, we've had, I guess in 2018, I'm trying to remember, I think it was in 2018, we had someone from the Tishomingo National Fish Hatchery come out and give a talk on this particular species and what they're doing there. They are raising them. They've been doing this since around the year 2000. They're raising them in impoundments, and it might have went dark in here. They're raising them and they're reintroducing them in certain parts of Oklahoma. But you see, they're not really reintroducing them much around here. Most of their reintroductions have been in northeast Oklahoma, but they have reintroduced them just around Tishomingo National Wildlife Refuge in the Ouachita River Basin, which is part of the Lake Texoma system. This is a protected species in both Texas and in Oklahoma, and it's listed as a threatened species in Texas. Okay, the next species, the snapping turtle. This is the common snapping turtle. This is also a large turtle, but not nearly as large as an alligator snapper. May have these barbels on the chin. Okay, we'll see so a few other turtles have those barbels sometimes. A really long tail. Now remember, alligator snappers also have a really long tail, but that's a long tail for a turtle. A small plastron. Remember I said alligator snapping turtles have that too. So when you look on the belly of this turtle, there's the plastron. Remember, that's the belly shell, and you see there's lots of exposure on the arms and legs. And so that's a really small plastron for a turtle. Again, like the alligator snapper, we have the posterior edge of the carapace is serrated. So here's a look at a common snapper and an alligator snapper. That's not a very good photo of an alligator snapper. That's a captive individual that's feet are all messed up. Now, remember what I said about that extra row of scutes on the side? See, you're not seeing that on the common snapper. Alligator snapper, extra row, common snapper, not. Those keels, really present, even on an old individual, but on an old common snapper, I'm not seeing those keels. I might see them on a young one, but they're not going to be as prominent as on an alligator snapper. So it's really quite easy to tell an alligator snapping turtle from a common snapping turtle. Common snappers, they rarely bask. So of course, what do I have here? I have a photograph of one basking. But and so this just goes to show you that when I say a turtle rarely basks, that doesn't mean it never basks. So my favorite place to go look at turtles is the Herd Museum and Sanctuary in McKinney, which is in Collin County. So that's the county south of Grayson County. That place is amazing for looking at turtles. Now, the only bad thing is you're not going to see very many species, but you can get really close to them on that boardwalk. So when you walk, they are so used to people walking on that boardwalk that most of them will just stay there as you walk by, and you can get quite close to them in many cases. So that's my favorite place to go look at turtles, is the Herd Sanctuary in McKinney, and that's where we are here with this basking common snapper. Pretty omnivorous. They'll eat just about anything. They do eat a lot of plant matter, and so this has a really wide distribution. So you see, we're right in the middle. Well, I shouldn't say middle, but we're well within the range of the common snapping turtle distribution. This has the largest range of any North American turtle, and it's been introduced in other parts of the world, I assume for food. They definitely occur at Hagerman. Here's a photo I took many years ago, I think around 2007, of one over there, just barely on the other side of Big Mineral Creek. So they're definitely around. They're found in all sorts of habitats. I'll try to go through this next family fairly quickly because I think you're less likely to, you're not very likely to encounter these, the mud and musk turtles. And there's 4 potential species in our area. These are really aquatic turtles, okay? They don't often bask. They do sometimes, but not often. They rarely leave the water. More common in non-flowing water. These are small, and their shell is oval. And so as a not rounded, okay? So if you see a turtle that's, let's say, less than 5 inches long, one choice is it's a baby turtle, right? But baby turtles usually have a fairly round shell. These things don't. They have an oblong shell. And so it's very easy to tell that you're not looking at a baby turtle when you see a 4 or 5 inch turtle with an oblong shell. Let's see. There's no serrations on the posterior, or very, very minor serrations on the posterior edge of this carapace. That's a mud or musk turtle. Okay, that'll work every time. The plastron is hinged. Remember, that's the lower shell, and so usually there's 1 or 2 hinges, and these are the only aquatic turtles in our area that have hinged plastrons. Notice I said aquatic turtles. Sometimes we see barbels. Remember, we saw barbels on the snapping turtle. And like I said, the posterior part of the carapace is not serrated. Well, here's the bad news. Sometimes you need to look at the plastron to be certain of your identification. And so that's a real problem. And these are the only turtles that I'm going to talk about today where there's there's just two species that are really hard to tell apart sometimes. And it helps if you look at their plastron, which means the thing's got to be in your hand, of course. This group has short tails. Remember how long the snapping turtle tails were? They have short tails. Now the males are going to be longer and stouter, and that's, excuse me, that's very common in turtles. Okay, and so here's a female. Now both of these have their obviously they're upside down. Okay, and this is the back end. Both of these turtles have their tail curved to the side, but there's a female, pretty short tail. Here's a male, much longer and stouter tail. And this, of course, is because when these things mate, he has to wrap his tail around her to get his penis inside of her, and that's not easy to. Well, it's potentially not easy to do with that shell there, and so they have to have a longer tail. Some of these turtles release a musk that is offensive to some people. I've actually never smelled it. I don't know if I can't smell it or what. Okay, so 4 species. The razorback musk turtle. This is the easy one. You can't confuse this with anything else, I don't think. This is a small turtle, and it's shaped like a tent. Okay, some young turtles of other species might kind of be shaped like this, but not as pronounced as this. And even when this thing's an adult, it's still shaped like a tent with this prominent keel right down the middle. This has some things in common with the next species I'm going to talk about. They have a fairly small plastron, okay? Not as small as a snapping turtle, but I can see lots of leg and skin there. And lots of flesh is often found between these plastral scutes. Okay, so that's a scute. Those are the scales, right? And see how much flesh I'm seeing between these scutes. Not going to see that on most turtles, but on musk turtles, that's real common. The plastron often hinges anteriorly. Okay, sometimes it does. Sometimes it's kind of hard to see, but that's a normal thing for this species, or for these actually 2 species. Found in a variety of habitats, omnivorous. Okay, so you see, right on the edge of the range of this species, aren't we? And so east of us, more common, west of us, not common. Now, there's no records for Grayson County for this species, but there's no reason they couldn't be at the refuge. And again, small turtle, oblong, tent-like shape to it, a high, with a high keel right down the middle, unmistakable, razorback musk turtle. Even the name helps you remember what it looks like, razorback. The eastern musk turtle, a lot of people call this the stink pot. Another small turtle, about the same size. Unfortunately, this is one of the 2 species that you can confuse, and you may need to have it in your hand to make a positive identification, because there's lots of flesh between these plastral scutes, and the species you might confuse it with does not have that flesh. Here's some variation. So the coloration can be really variable. Some of these things are very dark. Some of them are very light, kind of an olive. Some of them are somewhere in between. So unfortunately, color doesn't get you there. But what does get you there is you've got an oblong shell, okay, not serrated on the posterior side. It's not tent shaped. And so that at least gets you to, I'm looking at a mud or musk turtle, and it's not a razorback musk turtle. Right on the edge of its range. Once again, there's no records for this turtle either. So neither musk turtle is there a museum record for the refuge or for Grayson County. But again, there's no reason why these things can't occur at the refuge. You know, it's kind of interesting. Jack Childs and Wayne and going back a lot further than that, they do a bird census every Tuesday, and they have for I think 50 years. To my knowledge, there's never been a turtle census done at the refuge. And so that would be a nice thing for someone to do. And you can't do this just by looking. You need to set out traps. And to my knowledge, no one has really ever done a survey of the turtles on the refuge. I haven't been told if anyone has. And so that needs to be done badly. Mud turtles. Okay, so remember I was talking about musk turtles. Now I'm talking about mud turtles. They have a larger plastron. Okay, remember, so this is the lower shell. So this is a mud turtle. See how the plastron, you know, pretty much covers everything? This is a musk turtle, like we were looking at before. And remember that I can see a lot of legs and skin on that smaller plastron. Okay, I know it's not going to help you unless it's in your hand, right? The plastron has a K. Okay, so this is the head end here. See the K right there? There's a K on mud turtles, which is handy because their genus is Kinosternum, starts with a K. Not a lot of flesh between the scutes, like on a musk turtle. Musk turtle, lots of flesh. Mud turtle, not lots of flesh. And these things have two hinges, okay? They can hinge anteriorly and posteriorly. So they can completely close themselves in their shell like a box turtle, which is, you know, very unusual for a turtle to be able to do that. First species, the yellow mud turtle. Another small turtle. All these turtles are typically less than 5 inches long. And so our subspecies, here I am going to use color, typically has a yellow chin and throat. No stripes on the head, but a yellow chin and throat. I don't want to talk about that. Found in a variety of habitats, omnivorous. Now, remember I told you there's only one turtle species that's known to guard its eggs? This is the one. The females often bury themselves with their eggs. So here we see lots of variation in color, dark or light, but again, we're seeing an oblong turtle, not serrated on the posterior end, not razor-backed like that razor-back musk turtle, and yellow chin and throat, and no stripes on the head. That'll usually get you a yellow mud turtle. So this one's not too hard to identify, I don't think. Now, this is interesting. This is a more western species, isn't it? This looks just the opposite of most of our distributions we've been looking at. Most of the distributions, the yellow's been over here, right? But on this one, we're kind of on the eastern edge of the range instead of the western edge of the range. There's no records for this in Grayson County, but there's no reason why this couldn't be at the refuge. Next turtle, Mississippi mud turtle. Another small turtle. There's usually at least some indication of 2 light stripes on the head. Okay, so I see a stripe there and a stripe there. I see a stripe there and a stripe there. It's a little harder on this specimen, isn't it? These can be found in quite a few habitats, omnivorous. So what I'm looking at is an oblong turtle. It's not tent-shaped, so it's not a razorback musk turtle. It doesn't have a yellow chin and throat, so it's not a yellow mud turtle. And I've got 2 stripes on the head. So we're down to Mississippi mud turtle or stinkpot, you know, the eastern musk turtle. And that's a real challenge, okay? If it's in your hand, it's unbelievably easy. Look, a large plastron, a K on the plastron, not a lot of skin between the scutes. But, you know, how many times is this thing in your hand? Often it's not, especially when you're at a wildlife refuge. You'd probably get arrested if you got caught holding one of these things. So I think that's a real challenge sometimes, telling a Mississippi mud turtle from a common musk turtle when you can't look at the belly. Here's another turtle from the herd sanctuary I took a photograph of a few years ago. And so again, I'm on that boardwalk laying down, and these don't bask very often, but usually when I go there, I think there's a good chance I'm going to see one. Not always, but usually I see about one. There's another trip I took to the herd sanctuary and saw one. Yep. So no reason why these things shouldn't be at the refuge. And there is a museum record for Grayson County for Mississippi mud turtles. So it's the only one of the mud or musk turtles that there is a museum record for. Next family, Trionychidae, the softshell turtles, 2 species in our area. They look like a pancake. Okay, that if you see a turtle that looks like a pancake, it's a softshell turtle. Their carapace is floppy, especially over here on the sides, because they don't have as many bones underneath this skin. And instead of having those hard scutes, they have a leathery skin. That's the name softshell turtle. A really, highly webbed feet. These things are fast swimmers, and they stay in the water most of the time. A really long tubular snout with the nares or nostrils, whatever you want to call them, right on the end of the snout. A really long neck. Okay, be careful if you catch one of these things and don't get bitten when that long neck comes out. Yeah, long neck, long snout with the nares right on the end. The females are often much larger than the males in this family. And remember what I said, these are the only 2 turtle species found around here that the sex of the offspring is determined by genes, like in mammals and birds. That these do not have temperature-dependent sex determination. Really aquatic. Can hold their breath, stay underwater for a long time. Tend to be more common in waters with soft bottoms as opposed to rocky bottoms. They sometimes will bask in shallow water with their shells under the water and just their snout sticking out of the water. But they do bask on logs. Certainly at Hagerman, you see them basking on logs all the time, but usually really far away. These things are frustratingly difficult to get close to. And so I think this is one of the biggest challenges when you're trying to look at turtles at Hagerman, is just getting close enough to these soft shells to tell the 2 species apart. It's a real challenge. If you can get close to them, they're not difficult to tell the 2 species apart. But from binocular distance, it can be difficult. So here we go. The first species I'll mention is the spiny softshell turtle. These can get huge. Okay, so when you see a really large, like a crazy large softshell turtle, it's a spiny softshell. You don't have to look any further. If you've got a turtle, that's 1.5 foot long carapace, that's a spiny softshell. The other species, the smooth softshell, just doesn't get that big. And by the way, it's only the females that get that big of the spiny softshell. Okay, it's called spiny because it has these bumps, which apparently sometimes do look kind of spiny. But see, I'm seeing bumps on the carapace. I'm seeing them all over. It seems like they're often more concentrated on the posterior end, which we can't see in this photograph. But a great characteristic that you can see from further away sometimes is see these bumps behind the head and neck. Okay. Look right behind the head and neck for bumps. That's a spiny softshell. These are pretty carnivorous. Apparently eat some fish and a lot of invertebrates. And one thing kind of neat about softshells is they kind of have lips, which you don't normally think of any reptile having lips, but they kind of do. So we're well within the range of the spiny softshell. And so this is a common turtle. They're found in lakes, rivers, ponds. And so most of the time when you see a softshell in North Texas, not necessarily at Hagerman, but in North Texas, you're looking at a spiny softshell. By the way, the subspecies in our area is called the pallid spiny softshell. So there's different subspecies, but not in our area. These things definitely occur at Hagerman. So on my 2021 turtle survey 2 days ago. Here I was over, I think this is HPAT, I can't remember for sure, and with my long lens. So I got pretty close to these. I had camouflage clothes on, and I was sneaking around in these button bush, and I got fairly close, but that's not close enough. Let's concentrate on that turtle, and let's digitally enlarge it. Okay, boom. See those bumps that almost look like serrations right behind the head and neck. See the bumps on the carapace, tubercles, whatever you want to call them. Yeah, that's a spiny soft shell. No doubt about that one. Sometimes I'm not certain because I just don't feel like I can see it well enough. But on this one, there's no doubt. That's a spiny soft shell at Hagerman. The other species is the smooth soft shell. And we're pretty lucky to have these at Hagerman because this is not a common turtle in most parts of Texas. And so these are a little smaller. So a female's typically not going to get much over a foot, and they lack the bumps. Okay, they're smooth. They don't have the bumps, and they don't have the bumps on the carapace, and most importantly, they don't have those bumps behind the head and neck. It looks smooth behind the head and neck. Smooth soft shell. This is considered more of a river turtle than the spiny soft shell is. You're not going to find these things in ponds, and you won't find them in a lot of lakes, but they're very common in Lake Texoma. Like the spiny soft shell, mostly carnivorous, eat a lot of invertebrates, some fish. So this distribution map is fairly deceptive. If you could look in more fine detail, you would find that these things are found in major river systems, as opposed to just all over the eastern half of Texas. They're found in the major river systems mainly. And they definitely occur at Hagerman because I took some photos 2 days ago. So we're on that same log. Okay, remember we were looking at that one a few minutes ago. Now let's focus in on that turtle there. Let's digitally enlarge it. Okay, smooth soft shell. Look behind the head and neck. I'm not seeing those bumps. It looks smooth. I'm not, it's kind of hard to tell for sure, but I'm not seeing bumps on the carapace either. But this is what convinces me that this is a smooth soft shell. It looks smooth right behind the head and neck. Okay, like I said, that was just 2 days ago at the refuge. Just to remind you, remember that's what the spiny soft shell would look like, and so we're not seeing those bumps. This is a smooth soft shell. Okay, here's our bigger family of turtles, the Emididae. So this includes a lot of things that don't all look alike: pond turtles, map turtles, chicken turtle, and even the box turtle. So 7 potential species. And this is a real treat that we have these at the refuge, the Ouachita map turtle. And so this is a medium-sized turtle, a little bit small medium, let's say, turtle. Females get a little bigger than the males. So what am I going to look for? I'm going to look for 3 spots. There's a yellow spot, which actually it's a crescent, but from the side, it often looks like a spot. There's a yellow spot behind the eye, and there's 2 yellow spots below the eye, one on the upper jaw, one on the lower jaw. Okay, yellow spot behind the eye, 2 yellow spots below, one on the upper jaw, one on the lower jaw. That'll do it. So there, you may notice there's all sorts of other things. There's spots on the chin. There's a line in between the eyes, but I'm not even looking at that. I'm just going to focus on the spot behind the eye and the 2 spots below the eye. That's all I need. Okay. Now, map turtles, which are in this genus Graptomys, they have these serrated keels on their back. It's really obvious in the young ones, but unlike most turtles, this is retained in the adults. And so they're sometimes called sawback turtles, but yeah, see that? And so right away, even from a long distance, I know this is going to be a map turtle just by looking at that sawback on it. By the way, these turtles, I wasn't the only one who photographed these. I think Lori Shepard photographed these. They were on a log right there on Wildlife Drive by Harris Creek, real close to the visitor center. This was I guess about 5 years ago, and they got very used to cars going by. And so as long as you would stay in your car, you could get reasonably close to these things and photograph them, and which is not always the case with map turtles. Sometimes they're fairly skittish, but these were used to cars. The posterior edge of the carapace is pretty serrated. Remember, it was not in those mud and musk turtles. Like a lot of turtles, the males typically have very long front claws and, of course, long tails. So what do we got here? We got a male. See that really long claw? We got a male here. See that really long tail? We got a male here, long claws. We got another male here. So all 4 of these are males. For some reason, I see males basking at Hagerman way more often than females. It might be that the females are just more skittish. I don't know why. I do see females, but not nearly as often as males. So these eat a lot of mollusks, apparently. Apparently that's pretty common for map turtles, snails and mussels, and then some other invertebrates and even a few fish. There's another one from Hagerman earlier in that year. And so you see how lucky we are at Hagerman to be able to see these, and they're really common. Because this is not a turtle that's found throughout much of Texas. This is a turtle that's found in the Red River and some tributaries, and not much else in Texas. This might be the most common turtle at the refuge. I mean, normally when you think most common turtle, you always think red ear slider, no matter where you are. But man, there's a lot of these things at the refuge. They are very, very common. You've just got to look for them. And that's, if you're birding, you might not be looking in the right place to find turtles. Stop and look on those logs, and you will find these without too much trouble. These are probably the most approachable turtle at Hagerman. I mean, most of them aren't approachable at all. They'll flee. But usually if you drive around long enough, you'll find one of them that will let you drive up pretty close to it. Now, don't get out of your car. If you get out of your car, it's going to be gone. But they do sometimes get used to cars, and you can get pretty close to them as long as you stay in your car. Okay, another species of map turtle that occurs in Grayson County is the Mississippi map turtle. Now remember, there was a Mississippi mud turtle earlier, but this is the Mississippi map turtle. And so about the same size as the Ouachita map turtle. Now we've got a thin yellow crescent behind the eye, and this is more of a crescent than in the Ouachita map turtle. And then you've got this line between the eye. Now, remember, there was a line between the eye in the Ouachita map turtle, right? But you don't see those two spots below the eye, okay? There's not 2 spots below the eye like there was in the Ouachita map turtle. This is, it's a map turtle, so it's got a sawback. These are usually difficult to approach, okay? So most of this stuff, I'm going through it pretty fast because it's just the same as what I said a few minutes ago with the Ouachita map turtle. We're a little more firmly within the range. Well, I guess Texas is a little more firmly within the range, I guess I should say, of the Mississippi map turtle. But I've never seen one of these at the refuge. That doesn't mean they don't occur at the refuge, but I have personally never seen one of these at the refuge. So that's another species we need to document. There is a record for Grayson County, but I have not seen one at the refuge. Chicken turtle. Why it's called the chicken turtle? My guess is because it tastes like chicken, but I really don't know. This is not a real big turtle. Okay, it's about the same size as those map turtles. So a small to medium turtle. It's heavier built than a map turtle. A really long neck, okay? So when you see a pond turtle with a neck that's, 3/4 the length of its shell, that's going to be a chicken turtle. a broad yellow stripe on the forelimbs. Now, this is a little bit problematic, though, because it's on the lower part of the forelimbs. So if you're looking at this turtle from above, you're not going to see this broad yellow stripe on the forelimbs. Like, it's kind of hard to see on this one, isn't it? Striped pants. This is really hard to see if it's not in your hand, but you see those striped pants on the back. Some other red ear sliders sometimes have that, but red ear sliders usually also have some horizontal marks above it and below it, whereas there are no horizontal marks here. These things, by the way, now there's going to be another turtle I'm going to say this about, but they often have these three dark circles on the bridge between their carapace and their plastron. Now, cooters also often have that. Found in non-flowing waters, especially seasonally flooded wetlands. Okay, so this is not a turtle I would expect to see out in the lake. This is a turtle I would expect to see maybe in those flooded backwaters around Big Mineral Creek, or even around Harris Creek, maybe. And I have never seen one of these on the refuge, and I don't know that anyone has. But there's absolutely no reason why they couldn't occur in those flooded forests back there. They apparently can spend a long time, like months and months and months, out of the water. They'll kind of bury up somewhere because they do occupy those seasonally flooded waters. They don't eat fish for the most part because they don't live where fish are. Fish aren't in seasonally flooded wetlands for the most part. So they eat more invertebrates, things that don't have a backbone. And so you see the range of these things. And so you see there has been a record from around the refuge. I don't know if it was actually in the refuge or not. So the subspecies we have is the western chicken turtle, which is all the ones west of the Mississippi are the subspecies western chicken turtle. Okay, now for something really common in North Texas, the red-eared slider. This is the most commonly seen turtle almost anywhere you go in the eastern half of Texas. Anyway, now, like I said, not necessarily Hagerman. In Hagerman, I see more map turtles than I do red ear sliders. But most places this is a really common turtle. This is a medium large medium turtle, let's say. Okay, the females are a little larger, and what we're looking for is, the name says it all. This red mark, it's not on their ear, but this red mark behind their eye. Okay, that'll get you there if you see it. The problem is it may fade in older ones, especially the older males. And so I'm going to spend a little bit of time talking about that in a minute. And in fact, some of those older, especially males, they not only lose that red mark, they lose all these yellow stripes as well. The rear of the carapace can be somewhat serrated, more so in the young ones, not so much in the older ones. The males can have really long front claws. Remember, we saw that with the map turtles as well, didn't we? These things are found in all sorts of aquatic environments. Farm ponds, ponds in parks, lakes, rivers, usually find them around permanent water, but they'll wander into temporary water too. And like I said, in most places in North Texas, this is the most common turtle, not necessarily Hagerman. They bask a lot, so they're usually easy to see. Unfortunately, they cross roads a lot, and so they get run over a lot. This is the time of year where you see, just in general, you see the most aquatic turtles crossing roads. And lots of times that's females coming out to lay eggs on, because remember, they lay eggs on land. And so we see them coming out onto land quite a bit this time of year. This is one of those turtles that the young tend to be more carnivorous, and the older ones tend to be more omnivorous. The older ones eat more vegetation than the younger ones. That's just a general rule. So we're well within the we're well within the range of the red ear sliders. This has got a large distribution, and it's been introduced all over the world, and I assume for food. been introduced in parts of the western U.S., unfortunately. They definitely occur at Hagerman, okay? And so many of you have seen these things at Hagerman. Here's one at the herd sanctuary again in McKinney, okay? Red ear, that's all I'm looking at. More at the herd sanctuary, red ears, that's all I'm looking at. Whoops, here's one at Hagerman. Okay, I'm not seeing a red ear, am I? Now, what has happened? This is an old male, okay? I got a big, thick tail. I've got long front claws. This is a male turtle of some kind. It doesn't have any yellow markings on its head, any stripes, let me put it that way. It doesn't have stripes. That is an old male red ear slider that's lost all its, or most of its pattern. It's still modeled, but it's lost its stripes. It's lost its red ear. You might can see where the red ear used to be, can't you? But that is very common for old males. And the way you're going to tell this apart from the other turtles that don't have red ears is this not only doesn't have a red ear, it doesn't have any yellow stripes on, at least on the side of its head. Sometimes they have yellow stripes on their chin and under part of their throat, but it doesn't have any yellow stripes on the side of its head. It does not have the the sawback of a map turtle. Yep, there's another one. This one's from the herd. So this one was from Hagerman. This one's at the herd. Again, okay, another old male. Long claws, and it's lost all its yellow stripes, and it's lost its red ear. So here is a female that has the red ear and the yellow stripes, and there's an old male that's lost them. The next species, the river cooter. And so this is a large turtle. Okay, this is the largest of our pond turtles. You know, the only thing bigger than this would be snapping turtles or the spiny soft shell. The yellow stripes on the head do not usually disappear with age. Okay, so if it's big, it may be one of these, especially if it does not have a red ear. No long neck, no broad yellow stripe on the arms. Remember, the chicken turtles have those things. No serrated kill on the shell like a map turtle. You don't see the head markings that look like a map turtle. Yeah, so these aren't too difficult to tell apart. But just don't look at the shell pattern, which I've said that before. The shell pattern is just not very reliable on a lot of things. Man, look at the claws on that male. These things bask a lot, found in a variety of habitats, kind of like the sliders, the red ear sliders. The young tend to be more carnivorous, and the older ones tend to be more herbivorous, just as a rule of thumb. Okay, so here we are at the herd sanctuary. This is a young one, and so this young turtle. Remember, I said young turtles sometimes do have a ridge on the middle of their back, but this would be much more pronounced if it was a map turtle. And the head markings don't look right for a map turtle. So I've got a shelled turtle, a little bit of serrations there, and I don't have a red ear. I've got yellow stripes. That's a cooter. Okay, that's a river cooter. No problem identifying that. Here's a much larger turtle. Okay. You can't tell this from the photo, but this is simply too big to be a red ear slider. But also yellow stripes on the head, no red ear. That's a river cooter. See those three circles? Remember, chicken turtles have those, but a lot of these cooters do too. And so we're getting close to the edge of the range here. They don't occur much further west than we are. Definitely occur at Hagerman. Okay, on my great 2021 turtle expedition. Here I am on L-pad, and I looked over my left shoulder at this log right before the low water crossing there on L-pad. By the way, I was taking photos of these, and a couple of women that I often see at the refuge, they stopped and asked me if I was getting some good photos. And they couldn't tell what I was photographing because of the button bush, and I said oh, maybe. I said I'm photographing turtles, and one of them looked at me and goes, "Whew, You must really be having a slow day. Sometimes I think turtles don't get much respect around here. Okay, let's focus on these three right here. Let's digitally enlarge this. Okay, there we go. We've got three cooters there, don't we? Now let's just go down the whole row. Okay. I guess that's a male. The claws are somewhat long, but that's a slider, a red ear slider. See, there's no yellow stripes, no red ear, so that's just an old slider that's lost its pattern. But these cooters, they still have their yellow stripes on their head, but they don't have the red ear. And this is a large turtle right there. That looks like another mostly unpatterned male. I might see a hint of a red ear right there, but that's a slider. It got long claws too. And then here's another slider. This one does have the red ear. Okay, so red ear slider, river cooter, river cooter, river cooter, red ear slider, red ear slider. Okay, so that's a nice look at them at the refuge next to each other. So it's not difficult to tell these apart. So let's just look a little bit at cooters compared to sliders. So here I am at the herd sanctuary. And so I've got an old male a slider with his long tail, and he's lost all the yellow stripes on the head. He's lost his red ear. And then I've got a big female cooter, and she doesn't have a red ear, of course, but she does have the yellow stripes on the head. She's got those three circles there too. Okay. This is actually a male. Looking at that's a long claw, but he still has the stripes and the red ear. So that's a male red ear slider. This is a big, looks like female river cooter with the stripes on the head, no red ear. And then here is a male red ear slider that has lost his pattern. He doesn't have the stripes on the head, doesn't have the red ear. So red ear slider, river cooter, red ear slider. Hey, look at that. Turtles get a lot of leeches. And that is, nowhere is this more true than at the herd sanctuary. It's unbelievable how many leeches those turtles have along that boardwalk. And so when you see turtles there, look, and you'll often find leeches on them. Oh, this poor guy. This is a little, excuse me, this is a young red ear slider. You can see he does kind of have the saw back like some of the young ones do. This is a little bitty turtle. But look at that. You know you're having a bad day, maybe I should say a bad life, when your leech is bigger than your head. And that is a big leech for that little guy to be carrying around. That's at the herd. Okay, the last two turtles I want to talk about are in the same family. I pulled them out separately, but they're the same family as the map turtles and chicken turtle and sliders and cooters, and that's the box turtles. And we've got two in our area. These are the only truly terrestrial turtles in our area. They have this high domed shell that you see so commonly all over the world in terrestrial turtles. Okay, so none of our aquatic turtles have such a high domed shell. The aquatic turtles tend to be flatter on their carapace. The plastron is hinged. And it can completely enclose itself in its shell. That's the name box turtle. Okay, so it's hinged anteriorly and posteriorly. And if you grew up in this area, that seems normal to you because you saw box turtles when you were young, and that didn't seem like that big of a deal. But that's actually very unusual. There are very few turtles on this planet that completely close themselves up in their shell like box turtles can. Now, I mentioned mud turtles around here also can. I have a hard time telling males and females apart. Some people are real good at it, but the plastron's supposed to be slightly concave, and the males are supposed to have longer rear claws. But I'm not good at telling the males apart. These things are omnivorous. They'll eat just about anything. Okay, they eat a lot of vegetation for sure, a lot of flowers. They'll certainly eat fruit. Mushrooms. I've heard stories of people getting very sick from eating these things when the turtles had eaten poisonous mushrooms. They'll even eat. I've seen them eating scat. So they'll eat a lot of things. unfortunately, these guys, like a lot of turtles, but even more so, I think these guys they're really declining in a lot of their range, and a lot of it's just, we're just encroaching in on their habitats, and we're building roads all over the place, and those roads are getting more traffic, and these things just get tore up on the roads, and so they've become less and less common in the Dallas-Fort Worth metroplex as more and more roads, more and more cars, less and less habitat. I did see one this morning on the road. I haven't seen a lot this spring, but if you want to look for these things, get out of the city and drive on country roads in May. May is the magic month for these things. I would say between usually 8 a.m. and 10 a.m. That's your best chance of seeing these things crossing the road. It's usually in the morning. That's when I see most of them anyway. By the way, you'll see a lot of these box turtles. It says that on the snapping turtle too, it says Fannin County. Fannin County is the county just east of Grayson County, where Hagerman is. Okay, so this is the adjoining county. And the only significance to Fannin County is that I live there, and I live just barely in Fannin County. I live just a few miles from Grayson County. So I live on the western edge of Fannin County, and that's why so many of these photographs are from there. So there's another one from my yard. Now, I'm going to say this is much more common than the next species. I'm going to talk about the ornate box turtle, but I need to be careful saying that because Hagerman is truly on the edge of this. If you go west of Hagerman, the ornate box turtle is more common. If you go east of Hagerman, the three-toed box turtle is more common. A pretty small turtle, really variable in coloration, okay? As the name implies, on the rear, not the front, you see 5 toes there on the front, but on the rear, there's 3 toes on our subspecies, and I guess it'd be 4 on the other subspecies. The carapace is not flat. It often has a slight ridge or keel. I will try to show you, this is too out of focus. I'll try to show you that in a minute. It's said that the males often have red eyes and the females often have brown eyes. I'm not sure I can tell them apart. These are sometimes found in prairies, but they're more of a forest species, or at least edge of forest species. So usually you don't find them too far from the forest edge. Lots of variation, like I said, okay? And so top right, top left, and bottom left, those are all from our place in Fannin County. And so you see a lot of variation, especially in the head and leg coloration. But all of these ones from my house have pretty plain brown carapaces, and that's important. It is unusual for a 3-toed box turtle to have radiating yellow lines like this one does. I got this off Wikipedia, I think, and I don't know where this turtle is from, but so sometimes you will see eastern box turtles with radiating yellow lines, and that's a problem when you do, because you could confuse them with ornate box turtles. We're like I said, right on the edge of the range for these things. West of us, it's just ornate. East of us, the 3-toed is more common. There are ornates there, but 3-toed is more common. These definitely occur at Hagerman. I've seen them, multiple photos posted over the years on Facebook, and I've probably seen a few myself. Okay, the last species I'm going to talk about today, the ornate or western box turtle. Like I said, I got to be careful when I say it's much less common, because if you go west of the refuge, it soon becomes the only box turtle that there is west of the refuge. Small, again. This is much less variable in pattern than the 3-toed box turtle. You always see these radiating yellow lines on the. Sometimes they're thin, sometimes they're thick, but they tend to always have them. And like I said, that's rare for a 3-toed box turtle to have those yellow markings. So let's look at one. This is the one we just looked at, okay? And so you could confuse those, but a couple things. When these things have yellow radiating lines, this is the eastern, right? There's usually orange on their face. And on a western box turtle, there's rarely orange. It's almost always yellow spots on the face, not orange. And so I think that works pretty good. And the other thing that is sometimes kind of hard to tell, but on an ornate box turtle, it's flat on top of the carapace. And on a three-toed box turtle, it's not flat. And in fact, there's often a ridge right there. See that ridge? And now this does sometimes get worn down in old individuals, but that's a pretty good characteristic. And if you can see, real flat, it's an ornate, and if you see that ridge, it's a three-toed. Now in this case, you don't need to see that. The fact that this is a plain brown carapace tells you it's a three-toed box turtle. But the thing is we need to make sure this is an ornate box turtle. This is the only one I've ever seen in my yard, and yeah, it's got the real flat carapace there. That's an ornate. By the way, I kept this thing, I'm ashamed to say, for a year, thinking it would eventually come out of its shell and I could take a good photograph of it. And that's as far as it ever came out. I mean, it came out to feed when I wasn't in the room, but it never would come out when I was around. Yeah, more of a prairie species, and even these things even occur out in the western deserts. Typically not in forests, but I found one in my house, and that's pretty forested. Considered to be a little more carnivorous than the eastern box turtle. It eats more insects. That might just have a lot to do with where it lives. And so you see, we're right in the range of this thing. This thing extends way out into Louisiana, Arkansas, but make no mistake about it, this is not a common turtle east of us. It's a fairly common turtle west of us, but east of us, yes, they occur. I've found them in far northeastern Texas before, but you're much more likely to encounter a three-toed box turtle in the eastern Texas or Arkansas or Louisiana than one of these things. They definitely occur at Hagerman. I have never seen one at Hagerman, but Eileen Sullivan posted this photo to the Friends of Hagerman Facebook group team. And that's definitely a box turtle. And by the way, it's not surprising at all that they're found at the refuge. It's just that I had never seen one, and I like proof. Okay, so I'm finished talking about the turtles now. Let me just mention a few other things. How about some other sources of information if you want to learn more? Well, there is a Texas Turtles group on Facebook that you can go to, and there's a bunch of people there. It says 8,500 members. And what happens a lot, by the way, Carl Franklin, who's a real turtle expert, he and some other people run this Facebook page, and this is like one of those pages where a lot of people post photos and say, hey, can you help me identify this? So if you can't identify a turtle, that's a good place to post photos and find out. It's also a good place if you just want to kind of practice identifying. You can look at the photos and see if you properly identified it. This same group with Carl Franklin has a webpage, texasturtles.org. And so that's a good source of information also about Texas turtles. You can contact me. Okay, there's my email address, and please put something like turtle in the subject line so I know it's not a spam message. And I would especially like you to contact me if you get a photograph of a chicken turtle, a mud turtle, or a musk turtle on the refuge. Because those are species I would like to document on the refuge, and I'm happy to help you identify something. I don't not just turtles, but snakes or lizards or frogs or just about any reptile or amphibian. If it's not a reptile or amphibian, there's someone that knows more about it than me that can help you identify it. Okay, it's quiz time. So are you there, Alan? Uh-oh, is Alan there? And so I hope I'm not just haven't been talking to myself the last hour.
I'm here.
Okay, good. I was a little worried that like for the last 50 minutes, no one had been hearing me.
No,
So
you would
Alan
have
put
heard.
together Alan put together a quiz for us. I did the photos and he did so I simplified this a little. I didn't put all 15 species, but if you want to participate in this, I thought it might be fun for us. And so this is number 1. And Alan's going to send us.
Yeah, we're getting. See if we can get up to about half the people here.
So is the quiz showing?
Yeah.
Because I'm not seeing anything. Let's see. Well, oh, here we go.
Here's the results.
Oh,
Everybody
right.
got that
All
one?
right. We got that one. Yep, we got that one. Tell me if I lose my screen, okay? 100% of you correctly guessed that is a red ear slider. All we need is that red ear or that red spot behind the eye, and we got it. Okay, good job. This is at Hagerman. Not the best photo. By the way, this is a big turtle. Okay, this turtle is 15 inches long. Let's say it's a big turtle.
Give people another couple of seconds here.
Yeah, tell me when you finalize it, okay?
Okay, there it is.
Good. So, yeah, it's a common snapping turtle. So most of you were right. Very good. Yeah. And as I would have thought, the most common incorrect answer was alligator snapper. Okay. Now, remember, an alligator snapper is going to have 3 keels, 3 ridges on its back that are very prominent. If I look really hard, I could come up with some ridges on the back here, but on an alligator snapper, I'm not going to have to look hard for those 3 ridges. And remember that alligator snapper has an extra row of marginal scoots right here. Okay, but see, there's just 1 row of marginal scoots here. Okay, common snapper, long tail, hooked beak, although not as hooked as an alligator snapper. And I'll help you all with the sizes because you can't tell that from the photograph. This is a small medium turtle. Okay, maybe, I don't know, maybe 6 inches.
Getting some mixed answers on this one.
Yeah, this is probably a little more difficult. You want me to put it back up?
Here we go.
Okay. Good. So a whole lot of people got it right. That was the most common answer. That is correct. It's a Washita map turtle. Okay. So so I know right away that this is a map turtle because I see that sawback. Now, it is true that so I would never see that sawback on a mud or musk turtle, okay, with the different points to it. Now, it's true that a young cooter might have that, but this is actually a little too big for a cooter, and it wouldn't be as prominent in that cooter. So I'm thinking map turtle when I see that. And then when I look at the head pattern, one yellow spot behind the eye, two yellow spots below the eye, one on the upper jaw, one on the lower jaw. Okay. And so that is a Washita map turtle. Yellow spot behind the eye, two below the eye, and then that saw back. Yeah. I definitely see why you could think that was a river cooter. Okay. So here we are. I'm going to challenge you by distance. Let's look at that turtle right there. Okay, what do you think that is? Okay, that's not here. This turtle right here. What is that? Oh. Ooh, okay, we had trouble on this one, didn't we? Okay. Okay, so the good news is everybody correctly identified it as a soft shell. Yeah, because I mean, it looks like a pancake, doesn't it? Okay, it looks like a pancake. But see all those bumps? See, I can't see those spots behind the neck because I can't see that part of the carapace. But I see all those bumps. Okay, remember that's the spiny soft shell with the bumps. If it was a smooth soft shell, it would be smooth back here. Okay, it would not have those bumps. Okay. Tell me when you're finished, Alan, okay?
Okay, we're getting there. There we go.
Good. So almost everybody got it. Yeah, it's a three-toed or eastern box turtle. Okay, good, excellent. So I know it's not an ornate box turtle because the ornate box turtle has the yellow radiating lines. Remember, so ornate yellow radiating lines, three-toed is usually a plain brown carapace. Now, not always. I can also see that ridge right there. That wouldn't be in an ornate box turtle. So what you don't want to look at is how colorful the skin is. That's not a good characteristic. Look at the carapace. Plain brown is the three-toed or eastern. Okay, next one. Back at the herd. This looks like a filamentous algae turtle.
Getting a lot of different answers on this one.
Yeah, this is kind of hard. Oh, by the way, this is a, I'm sorry, I said I was going to tell you the size. This is a medium turtle, medium size. So let's say it's 8 inches.
Okay, I've shared the results there. Everybody's saying it's a red ear slider.
So this is not a real small turtle. Whoops. What am I doing? Okay. I got one common snapping, one spiny soft shell, mud or musk turtle. Yeah, so most of you got it right. Yeah, good. So I guess the easiest thing to confuse this with, if you couldn't tell the size, would be a mud or musk turtle. And so I was a little slow at telling you that this is too big to be a mud or musk turtle. It's just simply too big. If it was a cooter, it would have yellow stripes on the side of its head. And so I don't see any yellow stripes. And remember I said the old male red ear sliders, they not only lose their red ear, they also lose the stripes on the side of the head. Okay, let's look at that one right there. This is, by the way, this is a pretty big turtle. I keep forgetting to tell you that. I'm sorry. This is like a 10-inch turtle, probably. It's a good sized turtle. Might even be 12 inches.
Okay, I'm sharing the results there. Pretty much everybody said that was a river cooter.
All right, excellent. Very good. Very good. Yeah, so if it was a red ear slider, it would have a red ear, right? And because the red ear sliders that don't have a red ear also don't have the yellow stripes on the side of their head generally. Okay. Next one. That's a long neck turtle.
Everybody's trying to figure out which type of soft shell that is. Okay, I'm going to share the results.
Okay. Yeah, so most of you got it right. It's a smooth soft shell. Yes, this one's the smooth. And so I can't tell, this thing's underwater, right? I can't tell if there's bumps back here or not. It's just too hard for me to tell. But even underwater, I would see those bumps behind the neck. Okay, it would look maybe a little bit serrated right there. Okay, and I don't see those bumps. So that's a smooth soft shell. This is just a great photo, I think, that shows us some other things too. It shows us how long the neck is. It shows us how, so this thing can pretty much keep its whole head underwater if it wants to. Right now its eyes are above water and breathe. And look at how thoroughly webbed its feet are. And so helps it swim fast. I think this is the last one. Nope, it's not the last one. Second to last one, I think. This is a small turtle. This turtle is about 4 inches long. Okay, it's about yeah, no more than about 4 inches long. This is at the herd sanctuary. Little bitty guy.
Okay, I'm sharing the results here, and everybody's saying there's a mud or musk turtle.
Good, good. Yeah, very good. Yeah, so I've got a little turtle. It's got barbels on the chin. Okay, those are kind of hard to see, I realize. But remember, there's not only the mud or musk turtles and the snapping turtles have those. And a turtle that's that small, if it was a young turtle of another species, remember I said it would have a more rounded carapace, but this is a very oblong carapace. I guess that might be a little hard to tell in the photograph, but I think you can tell that it's an oblong carapace. Now this particular one, so I didn't put the individual species because I thought that would be too difficult, but this particular one has those two yellow stripes on the head. It doesn't have a yellow chin or throat. It's not shaped like a tent. This is a Mississippi mud turtle. Okay, and the only thing you could confuse that with would be a stink pot, but and that's tough if you can't see the bottom of the shell. But that's a Mississippi mud turtle. Okay, this is the last one. This turtle is about 5 inches long, so it's a pretty small turtle.
Okay, I'm sharing the results. We got 100% for the Western box turtle.
All right, awesome. And so yeah, so you immediately see that high domed shell. So and you think this is a terrestrial turtle, this is a box turtle. So aquatic turtles, the shell is flatter. Okay, there we go. But in this box turtle, the shell is high domed. You see yellow radiating lines, which certainly make you think this might be an ornate box turtle. But remember, sometimes the three-toed can also have these yellow radiating lines. But this carapace looks really flat on top to me. And remember, the three-toed, there would it'd be a little more killed, and there'd be good. Okay. I am finished. If anybody has any questions, though, I'll try to answer them.
Well, we've got a couple of questions that come in. One, Diane is asking if we can get a copy of the presentation, since this is your most concise, easy to use ID help that I've ever seen.
Yeah, so the PowerPoint itself, the only problem with that is it's 200 megabytes. It's over 200 megabytes. I don't mind people having it, but I'm not exactly sure how to get it to someone in a reasonable manner. Is there any way we could put it on the Friends?
Yeah, if you send it to me, Mike, I can post it in Dropbox like I do the video, and we have been recording this session, and I can put a link to the presentation and probably put it out there as a PDF file, just to make it easier for people to search through and find stuff.
Okay.
So we can do that.
I'll
if
try
you'll
to do
send
that.
it to me. Somebody's asking if there's a way to repair a cracked carapace on a turtle that's still alive.
So that's definitely not my area of expertise, but I've seen it done many times. One of the problems is, of course, infection, and that's something you got to worry about. But I've seen it weren't too bad with duct tape. I've seen you can use super glue. I've even seen people use fiberglass, although I'd be a little worried about using that myself. A super glue is probably not bad if it's if it's not in too bad a shape. But that's about all I know about that. That's pretty. I'm not a veterinarian, to say the least.
Well, then if those questions were in the chat, you can enter question in the chat, or you can unmute yourself and ask Mike a question.
Let's see. I think I see someone asking for my email, don't I? There's my email. I think Lori asked for. Okay. Are there no questions?
Here's a question from you asking about what
Oh, let's
integrates.
see. Someone's asking about integrate. I'm not sure about that. I certainly wouldn't be surprised if they hybridize sometimes, but I don't know of that. But that's just simply my lack of knowledge. It could happen. I wouldn't be surprised if it happens, but I don't know.
Okay, any other questions? I'll share again, if you're not already members of the Friends of Hagerman group, feel free to go out to the new website, and it's under the same name. I will stick that in the chat here in a second. But, you know, it's always a great way to help support the conservation there on the refuge, as well as some of the other programs. One of the big projects this year that we're getting started is an education pavilion outside that's going to be great to be able to get outdoors and do some education. It'll be great to have school kids come out and see the refuge and explore nature and be outdoors in the same time. So I would encourage you to check out the new website and certainly donate or join the Hagerman Friends of Hagerman group. Any other last minute questions? If not, I will go ahead and close down the meeting. And in the next couple of days, I will be posting the video of the presentation today out on our website. So you can feel free to look there. We also have under the events and education second Saturdays, we've got videos for the last couple of presentations we've done. The butterfly presentation Laurie Shepard gave last time in April was well attended and a great presentation. You know, Dr. Wayne Myers did one on birding by ear that was very informative and talked about a lot of the different birds that you might find out on Hagerman. And back in February, Mountain Lions with Jessica Haley and Bert Garcia did a program on bluebirds back in January. So I would encourage you again to go check out our new website and feel free to provide feedback on that. We'd love to get your opinion of what you think about the new site. And if there's no more questions, I'm not hearing any, I'll go ahead and shut down the meeting. And thanks again, Mike. As always, do a super job, and love hearing your presentations. They're so informative, and I know I learned something today for sure. I'm going to have to go down to the little creek below my house and see if I can see some turtles and figure out which ones they are.
Thank you, Alan. And thanks, everybody. Goodbye.
Okay. Bye-bye.